All aboard! Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, hockey fans of all ages, I am Beast Monkey of Now Rise in my train of thought. And it's time to talk about the Stanley Cup Finals. They start in a couple of nights, and we've been here before. It's kind of similar to the Super Bowl preview that I did, where it focuses on Cody and Roman. Night 1, WrestleMania 40, or Night 2, WrestleMania 40. But we got to go back to WrestleMania 39 to tell the story of what could be an American nightmare and the Canadian dream. The 2025 Stanley Cup Finals. It was WrestleMania 39 when all of us wrestling fans know what happened here. Cody Rhodes and Roman Reigns fought for the WWE Championship. It was a very good battle, a lot of drama, a lot of action, a lot of cinema. We all know what happened here. We got the typical shenanigans of most Roman Reigns title defenses, of interferences and chaos and controversy and drama. And ultimately, it was Solo Sikoa who made the save of all saves for Roman Reigns to prevent a third straight crossroads and get the Samoan spike in before Roman got the second spear in to pin Cody and win the title, retain the title on that particular night, leaving us with this iconic image of Cody wondering what just happened, contemplating life, all these other things, while the Tribal Chief continued his historic title reign. But then, fast forward a year later, we run it back, WrestleMania 40, but before we got to Night 2, there was some Night 1 business. The final boss pulled up, The Rock did his thing, and Seth Rollins, World Heavyweight Champion at the time, did his thing. They entered the chat, and now we got the Night 1 main event to set up the Night 2 main event. The second longest match in WrestleMania history was a classic, as advertised. It was a tremendous build to this match, and the match itself delivered the goods. It was tremendous. It might as well have been Bloodline rules from the word go, because The Rock basically flexed his TKO muscle, and ultimately at the end of the chaotic classic, it was The Rock pinning Cody Rhodes and leaving us with a remix of said graphic of Cody contemplating life, wondering what just happened. How can I possibly figure this out? Leading to Bloodline rules on Night 2, where it was basically no rules for those of us who know what Bloodline rules is, and what I would call Avengers Endgame, where everybody who had something to do with this storyline and the Bloodline build over the previous 3 years pulled up. All of Roman Reigns and The Rock's family members of the Bloodline, whether it be Jimmy and Jey Uso, who fought each other earlier that weekend, of course, and they fought each other during this match. We had Solo Sikoa pull up. Obviously, The Rock pulled up. John Cena, who got beat up by Solo Sikoa and by Roman Reigns during this feud, and obviously his history with The Rock. He was there, obviously. And then The Undertaker, who showed up because he's The Undertaker. We don't ask questions. We just let the gong go off and The Undertaker do what he does. Quite honestly, we just keep it moving. But in the end, as we all know, Seth Rollins played the most important role of the match, where it wasn't because of offense, it was because of defense. Rollins played the protective shield that he promised he would be for Cody Rhodes, giving Cody the opportunity to finish the story. 3 straight crossroads, Cody wins the championship and redeems himself for what happened for WrestleMania 39. But it brings me to what happened in 2024, June of that year. Panthers Oilers, the Stanley Cup Finals, where we saw in the first 3 games, the Panthers took care of their business. They won 3 games in a row. A lot of it was Sergei Bobrovsky dominating and carrying the Panthers. The offense really wasn't there as much, but it was Bobrovsky who did the damage. It did show up in Game 3, and so did the Oilers, but Edmonton ran out of time. So it was a 3-0 lead, and we're thinking, okay, this is going to be an easy one for the Panthers. Until it wasn't. Edmonton, the next 3 games, absolutely dominated and flexed their offensive muscle. Connor McDavid was in God mode. Leon Draisaitl wasn't too far behind him. And everybody else got in where they fit in, and Edmonton absolutely blasted Florida for 3 straight games. Leaving us to the 2 most impactful, important, and fun words in all of sports. Game 7. It was kind of Florida style, where it wasn't as much goal scoring. It was very physical and very defensive. Both teams would score, trading goals, and then the Panthers halfway through got the winner. And then they clamped down on the Oilers defense, where Edmonton really got no super great opportunities to close it out. Panthers win 2-1. Panthers win the series 4-3, and they avoid being just the fifth team to blow a 3-0 lead, and also probably having the most humiliating playoff loss and championship round loss in any of the four major sports. And I didn't leave this out because I think it needed to be mentioned and needed to be shared. We got kind of sort of Connor McDavid's version of the Cody Rhodes pick. McDavid staring at all the rats on the ice as the Panthers won the cup. The real question is, are we going to get a remix of this particular picture? Night 1 or night 2? Let's talk about the team that's defending their championship in the form of the Panthers. For Florida, they had a really good regular season. Nothing too crazy to write home about. Not like their President's Trophy year, which was the last year where they didn't make the Stanley Cup Final, which is kind of wild. But nothing like that. But it was still a really good regular season. They obviously then made the trades for Seth Jones, and the most impactful trade thus far of this year's trade deadline, although Mikko Rantanen can make an argument, Brad Marchand, who, is he final boss-like? Maybe. Possibly. I mean, he is a villain, and I guess that makes sense. But more on Marchand in a moment. Let's talk about the Panthers' run to the Stanley Cup Finals this time. Just like last year, they faced the Tampa Bay Lightning in round 1. Just like last year, they beat the Lightning in a gentleman's sweep. This time, the Panthers absolutely bludgeoned the Lightning in games in Tampa. They also got one in Florida, which was the first one in Florida. But this was a beatdown in a 5-gamer. And then we get to the Toronto series, where maybe this time Toronto could actually pull through and make it happen. It certainly looked that way. They were up 2-0 and kind of dominated both of the first 2 games. They were dominating game 3 as well. And then the Panthers woke up. Once they woke up, they really didn't get back to sleep. Florida bum-rushed the Leafs in the second period onward from the game 3 onset. And then Brad Marchand, who would become a figurehead in the rest of this series for various reasons, decided, I'm going to enter the chat and score the game-winning goal and haunt Toronto Maple Leafs fans. And then game 4 was Bob dominating. And then games 5 and 7, yes, the Maple Leafs got a shutout in there because Austin Matthews actually did something for once in the second round of the playoffs. Florida decided to basically go meet the Grams and they're not like us for games 5 and 7. Both of those wins being 6-1 beatings in Toronto. Not great for the Maple Leafs. In these 6-1 beatdowns, there was really no hope for Toronto in either of these games once Florida started scoring. The last goal of these 12 that Florida scored? Brad Marchand. Because of course it was. He becomes the only player in NHL history to win 5 Game 7s against a particular op. The first 4, obviously, in Boston. Time really is a circle, isn't it? As Brad Marchand continued to sign the deed of being part owner of the Toronto Maple Leafs, they had to go to Carolina for the conference finals. And just like in 2023, Carolina stood no match. This time, at least, the Hurricanes got a win. It was in Game 4. But the first 3 games and the 5th one, Florida scored 5 goals in every game, guaranteed. It was kind of wild. Carolina, to be fair to them, put up a fight in Game 5, but ultimately the Panthers' offense was way too strong and way too much. Panthers gentlemen sweep the Hurricanes. So the elements, if you were facing the Panthers, you got 1 win and 1 win only. It was in Game 4. And in Toronto, you got shown the door because Brad Marchand showed up. So the Panthers retain the Eastern Conference, and for the 3rd straight year, it was rather wild. But now we go to Edmonton. And Edmonton's redemption arc kind of began where the last 4 playoff runs have begun for the Oilers, against the Kings, where now it's a matter of, okay, LA's got home ice this time. Will anything change? No, it did not. LA did get the first 2 games of this series, but then a dubious challenge by the Kings coach and kind of stemmed the tide of the entire series. LA proceeded to get no momentum whatsoever for the rest of that game, lost Game 4 in overtime, got beaten Game 5, which effectively might have been a soul-stealing type of loss to lose that game at home, and then Edmonton, after a chaotic first period in Game 6, proceeded to close the deal and close them out in 6. So, death, taxes, and the Kings losing to the Oilers in round 1 of the Stanley Cup playoffs. Round 2, the last 2 Western Conference champions, the Golden Knights and the Oilers. One team beat Florida in the Stanley Cup Finals. The other did not. The one that did not handle business here. a gentleman's sweep. Good work by the Oilers to win all 3 games in Vegas, 2 of them in overtime. It was very good work by Edmonton, and their goaltending was rock solid and dominant to make all that happen. Edmonton wins the series in 5, which it felt closer than that, honestly, but it's still a gentleman's sweep all the same. Speaking of gentlemen's sweeps, we got another one. Western Conference Finals rematch. The good news is the Dallas Stars at home ice. The bad news is it didn't matter. Edmonton ended up handling business, getting the 1 game they needed to get to go back to oil country 1-up. Edmonton then dominated both games 3 and 4. Jake Ottinger eventually got ran over by a bus. Said bus was driven by Peter DeBoer. And the Edmonton Oilers would end up winning Game 5 rather easily, going back to the Stanley Cup Finals and celebrating on Dallas's home ice. Side note, can Jake Ottinger request a trade of the Flyers? I kind of want to see that. Anyway, let's get back to the Stanley Cup Finals. And let's talk about these 2 teams now that we have kind of showed how we got here. Let's talk about how the Edmonton Oilers have the best offense in these playoffs, averaging over 4 goals a game. We can also talk about how the Panthers, averaging a little under 2.3 goals a game allowed, have the best defense in terms of stopping people from scoring. Very impressive. Now, it's not to say that these teams are bad in the opposite parts of this. The Oilers are 4th in goals allowed. The Panthers are 3rd in goals for. Very impressive. Both counts. And there have been dominant playoff players the entire way for both these teams. Sam Bennett's been an absolute menace for the Panthers. He's leading the playoffs in goals. Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl leading the playoffs in points because they've been absolutely absurd. Of course they are. They're top 5 players, both of them. So it's a lot of big-name talent that you know and a lot of big-name talent that is finally going to be on this stage. I do wonder about 2 things when it comes to this. Zach Hyman's injury. I am a little concerned. Will Edmonton have enough depth to deal with the brute force of the lineup that Florida is going to bring? Without Hyman, can Edmonton get enough scoring, to be honest? Evan Bouchard's been outstanding on defense, but can the rest of the defense do what's necessary to keep Florida's monsters at bay? That will be something big and something critical worth seeing. Also, Evander Kane and Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, can you provide the secondary scoring and point production like you've done for a lot of these playoffs to help out McDavid and Draisaitl, who we know Florida's going to have their Marchand line and potentially the Barkov line to try to clamp down on Draisaitl and or McDavid's lines. We'll see if they even get split up. That'll be fun to watch. So how do I see this going? Will it be Edmonton bringing a Canadian dream? Or will it be Florida continuing to be the American nightmare that they have been for the NHL over the last few years? To me, I'm going to go with the former. Give me Edmonton in 7. And the big reason for me, aside from what I've just mentioned, they're fairly evenly matched, both these squads are. Stuart Skinner's played well in net. Obviously, Bob has. Both defenses have played well. Both offenses have played well. The big thing that I have not mentioned that I think is going to be the most key here are the special teams. And really, it's Edmonton's power play. The Oilers are scoring at a 30% clip. The Panthers are leading the NHL in playoff penalty minutes. That is a huge deal to me. Can Florida stay disciplined enough to keep Edmonton's power play off the ice? That is a huge deal. Now, I think Connor McDavid will retain the Conn Smythe Award that he won last year and what seemed like a kind of sort of moral victory, maybe more hollow victory perhaps. But I think this time McDavid will get the Conn Smythe, but he also gets to lift the Stanley Cup and end the Canadian drought of not having one since 1993, when apparently the internet was just being discovered. That's kind of wild to think about. But anyway, that's how I see the Stanley Cup Finals. I think this is going to be another really good series. I don't think it's going to be another beatdown like these teams have already given out twice already in gentlemen's sweeps. I think we're going to get another banger. Coming up next, I'm going to talk about the NBA Finals. And will this series be a dud? The Thunder, the Pacers. We expected OKC to be here. How many people truly expected the Pacers to be here? ESPN may be shook because they don't have that big city angle, but in any way, shape, form, or fashion, we're going to Oklahoma City for the first stop of my next train of thought.